Alright, my name is Ben Baum. I'm about to show you how I make my soon-to-be world-famous sourdough bread. Look at that beauty. Alright, let's get into it. The first thing you're going to need is a bowl, some warm water, and of course your sourdough starter. This recipe calls for 385 grams of warm water. If you don't have a scale, it's about 1 2/3 cups. If you've got a thermometer, your water should be right around 100 degrees. If you don't, just put your finger under the faucet until you feel go from cold to hot. Right in that sweet spot in the middle there is what you're looking for. All right, 385 and close enough. And next we're going to take our sourdough starter, put that in the water here. We're going to take 90 grams of starter for this recipe. I keep my starter in the refrigerator and feed it once a week. So before I make a loaf, I take it out of the refrigerator, let it come to room temperature. This has been sitting out for about 4 or 5 hours now. You'll see it rise enough, get nice and bubbly. And then when you plop your starter in there, it should be floating on that water. If little pieces here and there sink, that's great, but it should have enough bubbles in there to keep it floating. So I'm going to grab 90 grams here. Close enough. All right, make sure you got clean hands. Get in there. Don't be afraid to get your fingies wet. Mix that all up. Squeeze out the starter there. Make sure it gets all mixed in with that water as best you can. All right, now that your water and starter are mixed up, you're ready to move on to step 2. With the power of video editing, here we go. For this step, you'll need about 520 grams of bread flour and then 12 grams of salt. I do this in the KitchenAid stand mixer. Since we're going to be mixing it all together in there anyway, I just throw the flour and salt in there to start. All right. 530, close enough on the flour. Let's get to our 12 grams of salt. Beautiful. For step 3, we're going to put the bowl on the stand mixer right there. We're going to get this dough hook going on speed 1. And then we're going to slowly pour in our water and starter mixture. Now you definitely do not need a stand mixer to make this bread. You can do it by hand, you can use a spatula, anything you want, but you're going to be mixing for anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes, so having a stand mixer just makes it a lot easier. You can see here I use the spatula to try to get some of that flour off the sides. I open the KitchenAid up, get some of the flour off the bottom, get it all mixed in, then let it run again for, like I said, 4 to 6 minutes until you see it start to ball up. Alright, so we've got a nice ball of dough here. We're going to open up the stand mixer, wet your hand a little to keep it from sticking to the dough, and just get it off the sides, get it in a nice semi-ball shape there. Next, take it off the mixer, move that out of the way. You're just going to get a damp kitchen towel and cover this. So now we're moving on to stretching the dough. So wait 15 minutes after you've taken it off the mixer, get some water there to wet your hand, and we're going to fold the 4 corners in. Just get the first corner here, get under the dough, pull it up, just fold it in half. We're stretching that bread out. Alright, there we go. Grab the second corner, stretch it, fold it. Now you don't want to tear the bread here, but you do want to get a good stretch on it, develop that gluten. Alright, one more here, number 3. And there's 4 corners to a square, so we will do it again. Beautiful. Get your kitchen towel back out. We're going to cover this up and let it sit for another 15 minutes. We're going to do 3 sets of these folds. Alright, so another 15 minutes. Fold the 4 corners. Lovely. And yet another 15 minutes. Fold the corners. And this time we're going to get a good clean bowl. We're going to get some olive oil, canola oil, Pam, whatever you got, butter. And we're just going to lightly oil it so that the bread doesn't stick to it. This is going to be the bowl that we let the bread rise in overnight. Get that oil all mixed around there. Now we're going to take our ball of dough. Just dump that in the proofing bowl that we've made. Alright. You're going to cover this up with your damp kitchen towel again. And this is going to sit on your counter at room temperature for quite a while. So this really depends on the temperature of your house. In the summertime, it might take 4 or 6 hours. In the winter, like this recipe here, took around 14 hours. It's not hard science, really. Find a warm spot in your house if you want to try to do it faster. Find a cooler spot in your house if you are going to bed like I did and want to wake up the next morning and deal with it. So after the bread is proofed, you should see it has risen a bit. You should see some bubbles in there. We're going to wet our hands again, and we're going to pull it off the bowl. We're going to do some more stretches here before we cook it. So we'll wet our hands, and this time we're going to grab right underneath in the middle, and we're going to let the two ends hang over. We're going to fold this into thirds. So fold that bottom piece on the top, spin it 90 degrees, and we'll do the same thing again. So what we're doing here is trying to firm it up. You'll feel it's real nice and loose when you first start this. As you do a couple of these, it'll start to firm up. So kind of use your best judgment. I typically do 1 to 2 sets of these, each set being 2 or 3 folds. So here's the first set. And of course, in between sets, put your damp kitchen towel over it, let it sit for 15 minutes, and repeat. All right, set 2 here, you'll see it's firming up a little bit. It doesn't stretch as far as it did that first time. Get that all finished up, and now we're going to shape the dough. You can take this out on the cutting board. You can do a bunch of things to make this the perfect round shape, but really we just want to get one nice seam in the bottom that we can close up. It makes less of a mess just to do it right here in the bowl, so that's what I do. So you'll see here I'm just folding the dough all towards the bottom, trying to make a nice round loaf and make a bottom seam there. So just keep pushing that dough towards the bottom middle, and eventually you'll have a nice round loaf. Beautiful. I like to put sesame seeds in mine, so I'm going to coat this with water just like you would a soft pretzel when you're putting salt on it. And then we're going to throw our sesame seeds on. Now we're going to grab a second bowl and coat that with flour. I use this white rice flour from Red Mill. You can use anything you'd like. You can also use any bowl you'd like. I went out and bought this proofing basket when I started making sourdough, thinking it's absolutely what I needed. I still use it just because I bought it, but you definitely don't need it. Grab a second bowl, coat it with some flour, pour it in. So dump your loaf in there, and you see that seam in the bottom. We're going to close that up. So we tried to minimize that when we were folding the bread in to the bowl earlier, but we didn't get it all, so we're just going to close it up here. Pinch it as best you can. Try to get it to look like there's not a big seam there in the bottom. All right, so now guess what we're going to do next? Yeah, you got it. Wet kitchen towel. Put that on. We're going to throw it in the refrigerator. Perfect. Now while that's cooling down, we're going to set our oven up to 500 degrees. We're going to take our Dutch oven and put that in the oven as well so it can preheat. It's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour to preheat. And once it's done that, we'll pull the pot out and get ready to put our bread inside. Take some more of that white rice flour, coat the bottom of this pan so it doesn't stick too bad. Then we're going to take our bread, put a little bit more flour on it, and do our best to flip it into the pan without burning the crap out of ourselves. Good luck. All right, good job. Bread is in the pan. Now we got to score the bread so that it can open up while it rises in the oven. I've got a bread lame here. Make about a 1-inch deep cut through the bread. If you don't have a bread lame, just use the sharpest knife you have. So now we're going to put our lid on, put the whole thing in the oven. So now set a timer for 25 minutes. When that goes off, come back, take your bread out. You should have a nice golden brown loaf. We're going to take that out of the pan, throw it back into the oven, decrease your heat down to 450, and set a timer for about 10 minutes. Now we don't want to burn the bread, but we do want to flirt with that idea a little bit. We want a nice dark caramelized loaf. Cook it a little longer than you initially feel comfortable with, and I promise you it's going to be delicious. I was eager to finish this video up, so this one's not even close to as dark as I normally cook them. Keep that thing in the oven. All right, so when you take it out of the oven, it's going to be nice and hot. It's going to keep cooking on the inside, so let it sit for a good 10 minutes. I know you're going to want to eat it right away. Let it sit. Once it's sat for about 10 minutes on that rack, throw it onto your cutting board, and you can cut into it. Now it's time for that beautiful cross section. Oh, wait, let's get the lights. Oh, just beautiful. What a gorgeous loaf of bread. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. If you're hungry, go make some bread.